There is a curious law that's described at the beginning of our parasha this week. A Hebrew slave who had served his 6-year term and was entitled to go free, but chose to stay with his master, was required to have his ear pierced. After the judges had decided that this genuinely was the slave's wish, then, the Torah says, his master shall take him to the doorpost, pierce his ear with an awl, and after that he shall remain his slave forever, that is, until the Jubilee year. In contrast to other societies in the ancient world, where slaves were often branded on entering slavery, the Torah is requiring a mark on a slave who refuses to accept his freedom and leave slavery. The normal expectation is, if freedom is available, embrace it, do not shy away from it. We should note in passing that the slave is not being wounded here. In many societies, people choose to have their ears pierced for decorative purposes. Here, the slave is having his ear pierced for an educational purpose. Nevertheless, we can well understand that after having served for 6 years, a person may prefer the perceived security of being a slave to a master than having to worry about his future. He is scared of what lies on the other side of the door. It is important to note this is one of the first laws taught to the Jewish people after they heard the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai. A generation that had lived for so many years as slaves were conditioned to being passive and not taking initiative for themselves. The Torah is seeking to emphasize that even if you find yourself in the unfortunate situation of being a slave again, never regard that as normal. As soon as you can get out, you must. The significance of the pierced ear is glaringly obvious. God is saying, you're not hearing my message. I do not want you to be a slave to another master. And as you cannot comprehend the importance of freedom, you'll have to learn the lesson in a physical way. In contrast to the perforated slave, the distinguishing mark of humanity is the willingness to embrace freedom and choice. Someone who hands over his decision-making to others is wittingly or unwittingly choosing a kind of servitude. It may feel safer to transfer the decision to someone else, but to do so is to lose out on the growth we are capable of when we choose and decide for ourselves and accept the consequences of our choices. By all means, the Torah wants us to seek advice and guidance from family, friends, rabbis, experts, wise people, and then decide. If someone else decides for me, I can never be wrong. The consequences were not my fault. When we decide, we are expressing our basic liberty as Jews, walking through that door and confronting what lies on the other side. Shabbat Shalom.